The genius black girl was despised by the billionaire. In just a few minutes, she made him silent. This story follows Maya Brooks, a gifted Blackstreet mechanic, humiliated by billionaire tech mogul Victor Langston, after she pinpoints the hidden flaw in his $600K Modena GT. Within a single week, her genius will earn global acclaim, while Victor's empire collapses under the weight of his own prejudice. Beverly Axis Motors, late Monday morning. Polished hoods gleamed beneath museum-bright LEDs, and soft jazz drifted through filtered air. But the calm cracked the instant Victor Langston strode, in silencing chatter, as naturally as a flipped breaker. He wore a shark gray suit, stitched to broadcast control sapphire cufflinks, winking each time he scrolled his phone. The Modena GT cherry red and temperamental sat on a lift, like an injured thoroughbred. Technicians hovered around its open engine bay, whispering about phantom misfires. Maya Brooks, 34. Lean overalls, streaked by honest grease, finished wiping her hands and stepped forward. She had been invited by Carlos, the service manager, after 3 weeks of failed factory protocols. Victor noticed her only when she spoke tone, as calm as calculus. Your wastegate and injectors are colliding at exactly 72 Hz. A single shim between the actuator arm and bracket will realign the pulse train. 5 minutes, and the car sings. Victor's laugh detonated through the shop. 5 minutes, lady, I've learned more about engines from my yacht's espresso machine than you have from YouTube. He pivoted, raising his voice so the lounge customers, surgeons, financiers, a film director could share his amusement. Some smirked behind titanium laptops. Others recorded quietly bait for later gossip. Ethan Cho, the senior technician, cleared his throat. Sir, her reputation, quiet Ethan. Victor's gaze never left Maya. We bill real fixes here, not fairy tales. He snatched the key fob from the workbench, careful not to brush her fingers, then tossed it toward Carlos. Screen the door. Next time she walks in, send her to the toy aisle. A slow hush spread. Tools froze mid-air. A torque wrench clicked once forgotten. Maya inhaled the breath of someone counting backward from 10. She'd seen this movie before, from high-end tracks in Monaco to alley garages in Watts, and arrogance always followed the same script. When the real bill hit 6 figures and the engine still screams, she said, voice steady enough to steady others, call me. My card will be waiting on the windshield. No one answered. Victor had already turned his back, thumbs dancing across a platinum phone, drafting a story he could later sell as dinner party theater. Maya placed a pristine white business card, Brooks Precision, embossed in matte black under the wiper blade, then walked the tunnel of silent technicians toward the exit. Ethan's eyes met hers. Apology, shame, something braver still forming. She nodded, once the gesture a contract he didn't yet understand. Outside heat rippled above the asphalt, but Maya's mind replayed another garage, the makeshift one behind her grandfather Isaiah's shotgun house, where she'd first listened to engines like doctors listen to hearts. Machines never lie, Grandpa used to say. People do. She promised herself then that knowledge would be her accent, competence her banner, and no voice, however wealthy, would drown it out. Back inside, Victor eyed the lift timer, impatience tightening his jaw. Let's reboot the ECU again, he barked. Carlos hesitated. Ethan's lips parted to object, then closed. The billionaire's authority weighed on them like a torque bar across the shoulders. They obeyed. Maya reached her motorcycle, kicked it alive, and pulled away the city's glare, painting her visor gold. She didn't look back, but she pictured that cherry-red Modena, 2 days from now, maybe 3, coughing like an asthmatic after every start. It would be the sound of arrogance meeting physics, a meeting physics never loses. And somewhere in that awkward crescendo, Ethan Cho would remember the nod, gather nerve, and place a risky call. For Maya, the story had already moved on. She had a blown turbo from a rideshare driver, waiting a prototype sensor rig to finish, and in the back of her mind, the certainty that the world was about to hand her the perfect stage to prove that genius needs neither marble floors nor silver surnames, only a chance to be heard. The sun was only half set when Maya rolled her bike between the corrugated doors of Brooks Precision. She parked beneath the single bulb that hummed like a patient metronome, steady, unfazed, exactly how she intended to be, as the fallout from Beverly Axis gathered speed. She hung her jacket, tied her braids into a knot, and slipped a prototype acoustic sensor rig onto the test bench. Tonight, she would refine it until it could hear an injector pulse as clearly as she could. If the world planned to offer her a stage, she meant to arrive with new music in hand. Sparks flared. She soldered a microjack, tightened a clamp, let the hiss of cooling metal drown out Victor Langston's laughter, still echoing in her ears. It wasn't the first time someone mistook her calm for ignorance. It wouldn't be the last. That conviction carried her backward to an 11-year-old memory lying under Grandpa Isaiah's rust-dusted Impala, while cicadas screamed outside her grandfather tapping the block. Gently feel that rhythm, child. Engines speak in beats. She'd memorized those beats, chased scholarships that only whispered her name after she broke every placement record, and walked Caltech halls where few faces looked like hers. She survived each corridor by collecting data. No one else noticed the pitch of a misaligned drive shaft, the pattern of how certain professors dialed respect, up or down, depending on skin tone, the statistical certainty that competence eventually corners disbelief. Lotus racing came next, where she spent pre-dawn hours vibrating in sync with V6 hybrids until victory parades blurred. She loved it, but when her mother's stroke struck without warning, she loved home more. The return to Watts felt like being dropped from orbit, yet the neighborhood greeted her with stubborn pride. She set up shop inside her late uncle's storage unit, kept prices fair, taught any kid who stayed curious, and watched a waitlist grow entirely by word of mouth. Solve the unsolvable charge. The fare, leave the door open, the creed fit on a sticky note taped above her bench. At 9:17 p.m., her phone buzzed. Ethan Cho's name pulsed on the screen. She wiped flux from her fingers and answered. Maya, it's bad. His voice was pitched somewhere between frustration and fear. Langston told Carlos to run a factory reset and deep flush. The software bricked halfway. Now the Modena stalls at idle. They booked an after-hours crew tomorrow to pull the entire intake. If it fails again, management'll hunt for a scapegoat. Let me guess who they'll pick, she said. Ethan exhaled. I wrote a memo warning them your diagnosis made sense. Carlos buried it. I don't want to lose my job. But early truth hurts less, she reminded him, echoing Grandpa Isaiah. Stand up now, Ethan. The room shifts when the first brave person moves. Silence stretched. She pictured him alone in a fluorescent breakroom coveralls, streaked with the day's failures. All right, he said finally. I'll speak up at the morning briefing. Good. Document everything. If they retaliate, I know pro bono counsel. She paused. And Ethan. However this lands, you did right by the machine, and that always matters. The call ended. Maya set the phone down beside the half-finished sensor rig, noticing her own pulse had elevated by maybe 3 beats. A second, anticipation, not fear. Victor's arrogance had met physics. Now the human variables were aligning. She pictured the Modena again, coughing, choking, refusing to obey the overpriced lies poured into it. Soon, someone higher than Carlos would demand a miracle. That was simple mathematics. Failure at rising cost equals desperation divided by pride. And desperation eventually overrides pride. She swapped a resistor, closed the rig's casing, and powered it up. LEDs flickered in a pattern she'd coded to mimic harmonic waveforms. Each good signal glowed green, each anomaly pulsed amber. Tomorrow she'd mount it to a friend's turbo coupe for live trials. By the time Beverly Axis admitted defeat, she intended to arrive not just with intuition, but with data Victor's accountants could understand. Midnight crept past. The bulb over her bench still hummed its metronome. Maya cleaned her tools, locked the bay, and stepped outside into a street washed quiet by the marine layer. Over Watts, the sky carried no stars, but she didn't need them. Her path was mapped by horsepower hurt, and the unshakable truth that engines never lie, people do. She kicked the bike alive and rode home, confident that somewhere a billionaire's empire was already wobbling on its gilded axle. Tuesday dawned gray and windless, but the calm ended the minute Victor Langston marched back into Beverly Axis Motors. The night crew had worked overtime to execute his full-scope factory reset, and the result now coughed on the lift like a tenor losing his voice mid-area. Every idle dipped, surged, and finally died, dashboard flickering in protest. Ethan Cho stood beside the car, clipboard tight in his fist. He'd spent the small hours turning last night's memo into a formal incident report. Predicted injector waste gate resonance, mismatch, Brooks diagnosis, accurate further resets inadvisable. The sheet shook slightly as he stepped into Victor's path. "Sir, the reset aggravated the desync. We need to follow Brooks's." Victor's eyes narrowed. "You mean the YouTube prophetess?" His voice dripped sarcasm loud enough for the galleried lounge above to hear. "We're done entertaining her fantasies." Technicians paused sockets mid-air. Two younger apprentices held phones not for calls, but recording habit, born of watching influencers take down tyrants. Victor failed to notice the tiny red REC icons. He pointed to the sputtering Modena. "Pull the entire intake, replace every sensor bill Maranello for defective parts if we must." Carlos swallowed hard. "That'll run north of 140 grand. Cheaper than admitting I took advice from a back-alley grease monkey," Victor hissed. Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck. He remembered Maya's words. "The room shifts when the first brave person moves." "Sir, with respect, this is reckless and discriminatory," he said loud enough for the mezzanine. "Maya Brooks graduated Caltech, top of her class. Her diagnosis is consistent with the engine logs. We should invite her back." The room froze. Victor leaned so close Ethan smelled imported espresso. "Mention her name again, and you're mopping floors." Ethan inhaled steady. "I'll take the mop if it keeps the car intact, and the shop honest." Victor jerked back as though slapped. Muttering rippled through the bays. Somewhere, a wrench fell, the metallic clang, punctuating the standoff. Victor pivoted, stormed toward his glass-walled office. The phones followed him, capturing every stiff stride. By noon, the clips hit Mechanic Talk, then Twitter. Caption: "Just listen to Maya Tech, CEO. Ignores black engineer fires, truth-telling staffer." The view counter spun past $25,000 in an hour, $80,000 by lunch. Comment section seethed. Sponsorship managers noticed. Meanwhile, miles south in Watts, Maya balanced a triple espresso atop a stack of invoices when a silver Maserati pulled up. An elegant woman in crimson heels stepped out, jet black hair pinned with mechanical precision. "You must be Maya Brooks," she said, accent lilting Tuscan. "I'm Sophia Bellini, head of innovation at Maranello Motors." Maya blinked. "To what do I owe the honor?" At last week's SAE symposium, someone described a Watts mechanic who identified resonance drift by ear. "Our lab has chased the same phantom 6 months. I came to see the ear in question." Maya lifted a brow, ushered her in. They stopped before a stripped V8 on a stand. "Listen." She spun the flywheel by hand, pressed a stethoscope to the block. Subtle tremors danced through the tubing. Sophia frowned, hearing only metallic murmur. Maya adjusted a timing washer by 0.5 millimeter. Again. This time the note settled smooth as poured glass. Sophia's eyes widened. "You tuned that by auditory signature alone. And a decade of pattern mapping." Sophia exhaled a whistle. "Consult for us officially. License your acoustic method. Terms generous." Tempting, Maya said, wiping grease from her fingers. "First, I'd like a field test on a certain Modena GT, currently suffering an expensive tantrum." Recognition flashed. Langston's Maya nodded. Fixing it publicly would validate the method, and frankly, settle a debt. "My board will approve that stunt," Sophia said after a beat. "It's poetic engineering." Maya's phone buzzed. "Ethan. Engine worse. Intake pull scheduled. I may be fired." A second text followed with a link, his confrontation video, now crossing 100K views. Maya typed back, "Hold steady. Help is coming." She turned to Sophia. "Shall we write a memo to your board?" "Better." Sophia grinned. "Let's draft a press release. Maranello deploys breakthrough acoustics expert to rescue flagship model. Maya pictured Victor watching that headline scroll across a finance feed espresso, souring on his tongue. She felt the moment click into place. Data witness leverage. Physics had drawn its line. Now human pride was poised to trip. Sophia extended a hand. Partners. Maya clasped it, pulse calm, vision razor clear. Outside, Watts shimmered in late afternoon heat, but inside Brooks' Precision, the air hummed with the certainty of machinery, finally in tune, and with the first true rumble of an empire beginning to shake. Their handshake sealed more than a partnership. It detonated the next phase of Maya's quiet campaign. By sunrise on Wednesday, Sophia Bellini's press release, Maranello Motors deploys breakthrough acoustic consultant to rescue Modena GT, hit the wires. It named Maya Brooks in the third paragraph, lauding her Caltech credentials and uncanny auditory analytics. The headline ran beneath finance tickers, tech blogs, and crucially, the same automotive subreddits already transfixed by Ethan's leaked confrontation video. Within 2 hours, Brooks' method trended beside Listen to Maya, a twin-engine storm gaining altitude. Victor Langston awoke to 237 unread notifications and a voicemail from his chief counsel. "We need crisis management yesterday." Skimming headlines, he watched his own scowl freeze in pixelated loops. One clip labeled, "Billionaire dismisses, expert doubles failure cost." Stock apps flashed, 11%, then 15%. Investors who once cheered his bravado now pinged board members with a single, chilling question: how many more zeros will arrogance cost? At Beverly Access, technicians whispered over coffee as Maranello's release arrived in their inboxes. Ethan, still on Victor's unofficial blacklist, felt a surge of vindication. He printed the bulletin, pinned it to the breakroom corkboard, and snapped a photo for Twitter. Caption: "Turns out listening pays." By lunch, the post eclipsed 50,000 likes. That evening, Mason Grant, a venture partner with $40 million tied to Langston Mobility, called an emergency board session. On the live stream, Victor tried to project calm, but beneath the ring light, his voice wobbled. Directors cited operational negligence and PR malpractice. Mason's final salvo landed hard. Fix the car, apologize publicly, or step aside. The call ended with Victor's image frozen mid-blink, as though the camera itself couldn't watch what came next. At 2:03 a.m., Carlos dialed Maya. His words tumbled out equal parts desperation and hope. "Name your fee, your terms, just save us." Maya listened, expression unreadable in the glow of her workshop monitor. "Respect, first," she answered. "Tomorrow morning, you'll tell Langston a factory-certified consultant is inbound. Leave my name out. Maranello will confirm credentials. I'll need one bay cleared, no cameras blocked, and Ethan working beside me." Carlos agreed before she finished the sentence. She hung up and messaged Ethan, "Stage is set. See you at 8. Where the courage you found yesterday?" He answered with a thumbs up and a line from her grandfather, "Engines don't lie." Dawn bled over Watts as Maya loaded her diagnostic rig into Sophia's waiting SUV. During the drive north, Sophia briefed her on media choreography, a single press pool controlled statements, no mention of Victor's slurs, unless asked directly. Maya nodded, filing each directive, while mentally rehearsing the precision twist her torque wrench would deliver. Data mattered, but optics would write the after-action legend. Meanwhile, across town, Victor paced his penthouse like a wolf in shrinking territory. Insurance had flagged possible negligence. 2 city contracts froze payments, pending values alignment review. His PR advisor texted grim media training notes, "Own the mistake, early highlight corrective action." He deleted them, started composing a tweet, deleted that too. At 7:55 a.m., reporters gathered outside Beverly Access lenses, trained on the entrance. Victor arrived first, jaw clenched, flanked by lawyers who whispered worst-case numbers. He barely crossed the threshold before a hush rolled through the showroom. Sophia Bellini entered, badge gleaming, followed by Maya, in an immaculate navy coverall, Brooks Precision patch sewn over the heart. Cameras clicked like hail on glass. Ethan stepped from the service corridor, meeting Maya's eyes with steady gratitude. Victor opened his mouth, whether to protest or plead, even he wasn't sure. But Sophia raised a hand. "Mr. Langston Marinello, thanks you for granting our specialist unrestricted access." The phrasing left him no dignified escape. He gestured stiffly toward Bay 7. Maya set her case beside the Medina, the same cherry-red beast now sulking after 2 nights of invasive surgery. She slid the acoustic rig's contact pad onto the plenum, tapped her tablet, and the screen bloomed with real-time waveforms. Amber peaks, discordant harmonics, spiked where smooth green should flow. She pointed 72 Hz collision as predicted. Ethan downloaded the log as evidence. She removed a single shim from her pocket, a thin sliver of aerospace alloy, stamped BP01, and nested it between actuator arm and bracket. Torque verify power cycle. Total elapsed time, 4 minutes 38 seconds. She nodded to Ethan. He turned the key. The Medina roared awake idle, as even as a choirs held note. The shop erupted techs, applauding cameras flashing Sophia jotting ROI figures onto a leather pad. Victor's face drained color by degrees, each shade matched to a new headline already forming outside. He reached for words, found none. Maya wiped her hands, turned to the press pool, and spoke just loud enough for every mic. Competence is currency. It pays whoever respects it. Behind her diagnostic graphs stabilized into a perfect green line, the visual heartbeat of an empire that had tried to laugh her off the stage and just discovered its punchline carried a cost no bailout could cover. The words were barely off Maya's lips when reporters launched their volley of questions. Who taught you to listen like that? How long did it really take Will Marinello license this sensor? But her gaze never left the Medina's tachometer, now holding a flawless 800 RPM. Competence had paid in full, and the receipt glowed emerald on the graph. Ethan saved the data to 3 cloud drives and a flash stick, then surprised himself by stepping forward to speak. This fix cost 5 minutes and 1 custom shim, he announced. All prior expenses were incurred by ignoring her. Cameras pivoted. His voice cracked, but the truth landed intact. Victor finally found sound. She got lucky. You reset the ECU again behind my back. Maya lifted the tablet so every lens could see the untouched software timestamp. No resets, since last night, Mr. Langston. Hardware only. Sophia added dry as a ledger, and Marinello will invoice you for the alloy. It's proprietary. Laughter rippled through technicians. Victor's lawyers traded looks that read damage control, now impossible. Outside, the first push notification from AutoWeek blasted 4-minute fix topples CEO's months-long failure. Within 15 minutes, the clip of Maya's shim insertion looped on finance networks. Langston Mobility shares cascaded another 7% before trading halts kicked in. Mason Grant's call arrived mid-interview. Victor declined, saw 4 more board numbers glowing red, and felt the floor tilt. Inside, Bay 7 Maya packed her rig. Reporters shouted hypotheticals. Would her acoustic method expand to aviation? Could it prevent failures in autonomous fleets? She answered each in calm, clipped phrases, always circling back to one thesis. Respect the evidence. Respect the people who bring it. Ethan, adrenaline surging, realized the nightmare week had flipped. He wasn't the whistleblower on thin ice, but the loyal witness history favored. When a journalist asked how it felt to challenge a billionaire, he said truth speaks louder than title. I'm just glad I listened first. Sophia checked her watch. We have a debrief downtown. Translation time to exit before schadenfreude became spectacle. Maya nodded, turned to Victor one last time. Your vehicle's ready. No charge for the lesson. He opened his mouth, but emotion jammed the gearbox of speech. Only a rasp emerged. The press recorded that too. As Maya left, technicians lined her path with spontaneous applause. Ethan joined her at the door. I gave HR my memo and the Marinello bulletin. They can't touch me now. She grinned. Keep the torque wrenches honest, Cho. Outside, the air tasted of hot asphalt and vindication. Her phone buzzed a text from Carlos. "Thank you." Shop morale just doubled. Another from Grandpa Isaiah's old number, now her aunt's. "You made the evening news, girl." Front page. She pocketed the device, heartbeat steady, despite the storm she'd stirred. Across town, Victor's penthouse conference link filled with bored faces. Mason didn't bother with pleasantries. "We're down 18% and trending worse. Investors cite systemic bias. Step aside by close of business, or we'll convene a removal vote." Victor pivoted to the window. City blurred beneath tears he refused to shed. The Modena's perfect idol still rang in his ears, a metronome measuring every second his empire bled value. That night, the 4-minute miracle video surpassed 1.2 million views, propelled by reaction duets and breakdown threads praising Maya's precision. Hashtags Brooks Method and Engine Equality merged into one banner. Hear her out. Influencers riffed on the phrase. Educators proposed STEM grants in her name. Langston Mobility's website crashed under boycott traffic. PR interns wept into keyboards. Victor issued a late apology video, but the algorithm buried it beneath edits of his earlier sneer. Maya, meanwhile, sat in her modest kitchen, spooning instant ramen blueprinting updates to the sensor rig. Between noodles, she drafted a curriculum outline, Acoustic Diagnostics 101, Open Access Sliding Scale Fees, because competence multiplied when shared. Sophia emailed a draft contract, 5-year consultancy royalties, a research lab in Watts. Maya flagged 2 clauses for revision, hit reply, then closed her laptop to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, a simpler machine than any supercar, yet honest, all the same. Before sleeping, she scrolled once more, a clip of Ethan, declining an on-camera bonus, saying the team deserved equal credit. She smiled. The room had shifted because one brave person moved, and now thousands followed. Competence was currency, respect the compound interest. And tomorrow, when Dawn split the skyline, she intended to reinvest every cent. Dawn split the skyline in incremental gold, exactly as Maya predicted. And she was already in the shop, coffee in one hand, laser cutter calibrating the next batch of BP-01 shims in the other. Competence reinvested. While the cutter traced perfect arcs, her inbox flushed with new subject lines. STEM camp sponsorship inquiry, keynote invitation, women in automotive pre-order request, Brooks Acoustic Suite. Each ping felt less like ego fuel and more like proof the door she'd pried open was staying that way for others. Across the city, Victor Langston faced a very different sunrise. At 8:03 a.m., he stepped into the boardroom of Langston Mobility, shoulders squared, as if posture alone could glue his reputation back together. Mason Grant sat at the head of the carbon fiber table, shareholders patched in on wall-sized screens. Behind them, a muted ticker rolled red. Mason's greeting was curt. "We've lost 23% of market cap in 48 hours. Insurance has denied your Modena claim, citing willful negligence. Sponsors are drafting escape clauses. We need decisive action." Victor tried the contrite route. "I singularly misjudged Ms. Brooks's credentials. I'm issuing a public mea culpa," and he glanced at a note card launching a diversity task force. A director from Singapore unmuted. "Symbolism won't offset $2.7 billion in evaporated value." Another chimed in from Berlin. "Your attitude is now a liability in every ESG audit. Remove yourself, we salvage. Stay, we sink." Mason slid a motion across the table. "Effective immediately, we vote to suspend Victor Langston as CEO pending permanent removal." The A's came rapid-fire international chorus. The lone nay was Victor's, swallowed by majority rule. He tried to speak, but the chair muted him, a digital gag, every bit as humiliating as the smirk he'd worn in Bay 7. By noon, press outlets blasted Langston ousted in 72-point font. Stock stabilized the moment interim leadership was named, none other than Mason, who announced a company-wide equity audit and open dialogue with external experts, such as Maya Brooks. Analysts called it a smart pivot, but not enough to erase the sting that arrogance had tattooed on the balance sheet. Legal tremors followed. Civil rights attorneys gathered testimonial breadcrumbs from Ethan's recorded confrontation and the original humiliation video. A class action threat loomed on behalf of employees, alleging hostile bias culture. Insurance investigators smelling blood in the coolant opened a parallel probe. Victor's personal liability coverage quivered like a bent drive shaft. Meanwhile, Ethan arrived at Brooks Precision after his shift, clutching a box of old shop manuals. "Thought the kids in your Saturday workshop could use them," he said. Maya saw beyond the gesture. She saw a man no longer half apologizing for integrity. Together, they shelved the manuals beside 3D printed intake models and soldering kits. Later, over takeout burritos, Ethan admitted HR had offered him a supervisory role if he'd stay. "I demanded a diversity commission seat. Instead, figure someone has to keep the gears honest." Maya toasted him with her soda. Welcome to preventive maintenance for people. That evening, the Los Angeles Times ran a Sunday-style feature, The Brooks Method, How One Mechanic's Ear Brought a Giant to Its Knees. The reporter traced Maya's arc from Watts alleyways to Lotus Racing and back, noting her refusal to brand success as solo. "I stand on Isaiah Brooks's jack stands," she'd told them, headline ready, yet true. Comments flooded in, teachers requesting curriculum, parents asking how to enroll daughters in her workshop. Maya replied to as many as caffeine allowed. Victor, now formally suspended, leased a PR firm to sculpt a redemption narrative. The firm's first draft arrived just as CNN aired Sophia Bellini praising Maya's forthcoming lab in Watts Innovation flourishes, where respect lives. The juxtaposition obliterated any sympathy Victor hoped to seed. Sponsors fled wholesale. A luxury EV startup withdrew from a joint venture minutes after the segment. By week's end, authorities served notice and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission inquiry into Langston Mobility's hiring patterns and complaint handling. Victor's lawyer advised liquidating assets for flexibility. The Modena GT, freshly healed, went on the block at a collector's auction. Rumor said bids came in low. No one wanted the car that symbolized corporate hubris. The irony wasn't lost on Maya when she read the headline, "Ex-CEO Parts with Trouble Magnet Ferrari." She clipped it, pinned it beside her blueprint of the acoustic sensor reminder that machines indeed never lie. They merely wait for truth to catch up. Friday night, Brooks Precision hummed under new LED strips, donated by a grateful supplier. Community kids' ears, shielded by neon earmuffs, practiced stethoscope diagnostics on scrap engines, while Maya circled, offering quiet corrections. Ethan guided a shy 12-year-old through her first torque sequence. In one corner, a live stream projected Sophia from Italy, announcing a grant that would fund 10 student apprenticeships annually, each bearing the Brooks Scholarship seal. As the lesson wrapped, Maya powered down the last compressor. The shop fell to a satisfied hush, broken only by distant freeway surf. She thought of Victor, likely locked in legal strategy meetings with no engine song to ground him. Competence had paid her in opportunity. Respect compounded it in community. She set her clipboard aside, flicked off the main lights, and stepped into the warm night, certain the story's last mile was already writing itself, but knowing tomorrow she'd still show up, torque wrench in hand, because the work, like the truth, never really sleeps. Morning proved her right. By 8:30, the next day, Brooks Precision thrummed again, but now a cameraman from Popular Mechanics edged between benches, while Maya's students insisted on demonstrating their valve lash check for the world to see. She let them. Accurate hands beat polished press kits every time. What she didn't let slip was that 4 months had passed since the Modena miracle, and each sunrise had carried its own small revolution. In April, Marinello flew her to Fiorano, where she used nothing but a stethoscope and chalk marks to forecast a GT3 crank failure 3 race weekends in advance. The pit crew nicknamed her the Oracle. In May, the IEEE Journal of Vehicular Tech printed her acoustic algorithm, peer-reviewed and already cited by aerospace labs. June brought construction permits for the Brooks Innovation Lab, a steel and glass annex rising beside the cinder block shop. And July today would crown the arc. Late afternoon sunlight dappled the new facade, when Sofia Bellini's convoy arrived, trailed by press vans and city officials. Inside folding chairs faced an improvised stage of shipping pallets draped in red cloth. Kids in oil-speckled coveralls fidgeted beside doctoral engineers. Ethan adjusted the mic nerves jangling like loose heat shields. Maya stepped up in her unchanged navy jumpsuit patch over the heart, the only logo she ever needed. Sophia opened the ceremony. Innovation is not a zip code. She began gesturing toward Watts beyond the roll-up door. It's a frequency. Ms. Brooks taught us to listen for it. She detailed the 5-year, $5 million partnership, the scholarships, the pilot program placing acoustic rigs in public school auto shops. Applause ricocheted off tool cabinets. Maya accepted the Innovator of the Year plaque, laser-cut aluminum modest weight, and spoke barely 3 minutes. She thanked Grandpa Isaiah, her mother Ethan, every kid whose questions cost her sleep. She emphasized that genius expands when handed down, not fenced off. Engines never lie, she concluded, but they do sing. Make sure you're listening for the people who hear the music first. Cameras flashed. Live stream hearts spilled up the screen like confetti. While celebration filled the bay 40 miles north, a roadside diner off Highway 5 worked the dinner rush. A busser, in a faded Langston Mobility polo, cleared chipped plates, head bowed. Victor Langston's hands, once famous for gesturing through keynote slides, now smelled of lemon disinfectant. The TV above the pie case carried the Watts event on mute, but closed-caption headlines shouted, "Brooks Lab opens signals new era in predictive mechanics." Victor glanced up, just as Maya's smile brightened the screen. The diner's dishwasher called over the clatter. "She's the one who fixed that fancy Ferrari, right?" Victor murmured a yes that no one heard. Back in Watts, dusk settled soft magenta. Reporters packed gear. Neighbors drifted home, still buzzing. Ethan locked the new lab's glass doors and found Maya alone by the Modena GT chassis Maranello had shipped her for study. She turned a camshaft and thought. Funny, she said, 4 minutes, 1 shim, and a lifetime flipped. Ethan nodded toward the door Victor had once barred. All it took was someone opening this instead of closing it. She smiled, placed the cam back, flicked off the bay lights exactly as she had months earlier. Outside, street lamps flickered on. The neighborhood's night symphony began, distant engines, laughter, a basketball thump. She slung her jacket over one shoulder, torque wrench in the other, proof that the work continued, but so did the joy. Tomorrow she would teach harmonic theory to 10 teenagers, consult on a Hyperloop prototype, and maybe still find time to fine-tune a rideshare driver's turbo. Because competence was still currency, respect, still its compound interest, and the sky above Watts, no longer starless to her eyes, now glittered with futures she'd helped ignite, each humming a note she could already hear.